We're again talking about calculation views, like we did a couple of times. And if I personally have a question related to calculation view, I'm asking Jan. He's the go-to expert at SAP when it comes to calculation views. And Jan will show us how to create calculation views in the development environment Business Application Studio. Jan, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for attending this session. Actually, I think based on the time and so on, I think I will make the presentation on the slides pretty short and show more in Business Application Studio than how a calculation view looks like there. But at least a little bit of a guidance of what is going on with calculation views. So the first thing, why should we actually talk about calculation views? Calculation views are a way of graphically model the relationship between data. So you can and you can pre-process your data and prepare it for later consumption. Now, why do you do it graphically? The idea is that if you have a larger development project, you want to structure your individual parts. And by having a graphical representation, it's easier to structure it and it's easier to reuse it and also to communicate to other persons like stakeholders what you are doing there, because the graphical representation makes it easier for you simply to understand what is going on inside it. So that's why we do it graphically. Now, the idea of calculation views, if you have not used them before, is actually what I said before. You want to report on data. Now you can use, for example, SAP Analytics Cloud. In this case, then you need also a representation in a database. And this representation on which you build your SAC report can be a calculation view. Now, if we start on the bottom, we have some kind of data that's coming in, like tables, SQL views, virtual tables. So it's just data. But now you don't want to report on tables. You want to report on meaningful data. That means bringing together information from different tables. You want to filter it, you want to cleanse it, and so on. And this stage can be fulfilled by calculation views on the fly. So the calculation views are in this middle layer doing the pre-processing. They are very close to the HANA optimization techniques, which means you can leverage a lot of optimizations from HANA. And we also generate metadata, which means we generate information about these views. So if, for example, you connect with an SQL client or you connect with SAC, then there is a way of asking what are the relevant views in this database to report on. And this is in the metadata that we write when we deploy the calculation view. We also write the information like, for example, this is a currency conversion field so that you can show a nice currency about it, or this is a date so that you can show a calendar picker, or also that a user prompt is expected at that point so that someone can enter something and then this influences the processing. Now, as I said, we are leveraging a lot of HANA functionality, which means also we have a lot of optimization techniques. And that's also a reason why you should choose calculation views to benefit from these functionalities. For example, in this morning, you also heard about the MDS cubes, which is also a way of getting the best out of the database for you. And I don't want to say that we only are doing the modeling. I also would like to stress that we also have some infrastructure around it, like we do provide lineage analysis, we provide a model outline, and we also do things like auto documentation or visualizations, as we saw also in this morning in a context of machine learning, where you can pretty easily visualize nicely data. We support the OLAP functionalities because we are for an analytic scenario, so we have a lot of support of these kind of functionality. And with that, I would already like to start with a presentation, with a demo, sorry. So what I wanted to do here is I wanted to show actually how you can integrate different type of data sources, in this case, an data lake file, as well as JSON collection, and integrate that in a calculation view. And in the calculation view, also use some embedding functions to calculate a similarity to your query. So now that was a lot of theory. Practically, you can imagine, let's say you want to go on holiday and you know what you want, but you don't know where to go. So in this example, I mean, it's of course made up in a certain sense, but in this example, you have now the option that you say, okay, I would like to swim in a lake, and I would like to hike to a mountain's top. So then you execute the query. Now, sorry. Now you execute the query, and you get as a result, unfortunately not so visible here, then a ranking of similarity to your query, of your query. And in this case now, you get the suggestion to go to the Banff National Park. Now perhaps you want to do something else, you don't want to swim, but you want to do some, and go to dancing festivals. Then you get obviously, hopefully, a different result, and again an error because, oh sorry, you get a different result, which yeah, this time it's somewhere in Norway. So I mean, what I wanted to say, show with that is you get a normal calculation view. This calculation view you can use in SAC, you can use it in third-party analytics tooling, you can use it with SQL. So it's a normal standard calculation view. But what it does is it calculates a similarity to a query by embedding the query and comparing it to an embedded description, and then you get the result. And now let's just look a little bit more into the details of this calculation view, how this is done. So if you look in the calculation view, we have here a start join. So we have a fact table and we enrich it with additional data. And by the way, where the similarity is calculated, that's here the match score. If you go here to the expression, you see we do a cosinus similarity where we embed the query that you enter, and we compare it then to an embedded description of the locations. Now let's look a little bit more into details how this looks like. So I do a data lineage analysis here. And do so, if we make it a little bit larger. So now it's pretty small. So, so now, okay. So if we go to the left, I mean, on the right side, we have the calculation view, and you see here the dimensional data that comes in. And if we go now to the left, to the very left, we see the sources, for example, the holiday locations. The holiday locations is, if we look here, it's defined as a collection. And this collection is used in a SQL view, which simply does a select statement on the collection. And now if we go to Database Explorer, you see here how the collection looks like. So we can view it in a JSON document. So you see it's a normal JSON document. We have here the descriptions. We encode it or we embed it on the fly, and then we compare it to the query that you're sending. Now, this is the one about the location. Then we have here also a virtual table. And this virtual table is, if I find it here, virtual table, is just going to a CSV file. And the CSV file is in a data lake. So if I go here to a data lake, you see here the hotel information and the content here. So you see there's nothing special about it. It's just the location of the hotels and which is given in a CSV file. So this is the connection to the data lake. So we have here, to recap, we have here the JSON collection. We have here the data lakes. Then what else do we have? We have here geodata, so it's a kind of spatial information about where these locations are, with which we then enrich the fact table. So nothing special here. So you see just latitude and longitude. We have also a hierarchy here about locations. So I will come to the hierarchy later because we use it in two places. We use it on one hand side for selecting, but also we use it for authorization, so that we authorize for certain continents only different users. So you see here, it's just a normal hierarchy that we use and to enrich this. Now, you might wonder why we have here two views coming in, like for example, for the holidays locations, we have two views here. And the answer here is that we create here a snapshot. And the reason is, if you do an embedding, then you typically don't want to do that always on the fly. And what we do here is that we generate a snapshot table out of it, and we combine the snapshot table with the live data. And this is then done here so that you can, at runtime, choose, do you want to have the persisted data or do you want to have the live data? And that was, by the way, why you always saw the syntax error, because I forgot to comment that. But let's look at that in detail first. So let's look at access at the location information view. So open that. So nothing special about this view yet, but we have created here a snapshot. So it's simply a select statement on a query, on the data, on a calculation view, and we generated here an interface view. And if we look now at the interface view, we see here that the screen is pretty small for me, that in the source we have here defined, we have a base view, which is giving the live data, and we have the stored data, which is coming from a snapshot then. And with the input parameter, we can switch between both options. And that was actually what was happening in the SQL statement before. So per default, we go to the snapshot table. That's just a default of the input parameter. If we want to overrule that, then you can do that by just putting that inside here. I mean, obviously, you can also do that in a graphical interface. It's just another input parameter. So just to recap, if we go for the snapshot table, then now I should have marked everything. Then you see it's coming back pretty quick. If we go now for the base, which is the online data, then we do the embedding, we go to the data lake files, we go to the JSON collection. So you see it's taking more time. So you can have the choice at runtime whether you want to have it fast and the most current data, or and a little bit outdated data, or whether you want to go for the newest data, but perhaps a little bit slower. Now, how is this snapshot run? That's here in the scheduler jobs. So here, for example, we just have a procedure that calls the snapshot creation. And we have a scheduler job, which is planned as a cron job to run every day once, hourly, sorry. So with that, you can then fill the snapshot and control how outdated the data can get. Now, so to recap what we have here, so we have the JSON, we have the data lake, and we have here the snapshot to to materialize the data if you are interested in faster reportings in some times. And what I also talked about before was the hierarchy. And we also have here a hierarchy restrict analytic privilege. Let me show you first the analytic privilege. So we have here two analytic privileges. We have one for all continents. So the person who has this analytic privilege will see everything. So here's one equals one, which is always true. So it will hold for everyone, for every country. For the European one, then we use the hierarchy where we select from the hierarchy and only accept rows that are below the parent ID Europe. So people who have this input, have this analytic privilege, will see only data inside of Europe. Now, this is now something special about developing in Business Application Studio. If you develop in this Business Application Studio, you get a technical user, the RT user, and the RT user gets per default or gets a role that automatically assigned that's called development debug role. And if I now open this development debug role, you will see that here's all continents. So the user who is currently running from Business Application Studio has per default all continents. Now, if I want to change it, I can just assign it here. I mean, obviously, normally you would do that rather via normal roles and assign it to the user who should report on it. So we have here the Europe. Now, if I deploy it, the reporting user now will get the other privileges, or this privilege. Voila. Good. And now if I execute it, you should see only, oh, I did it on a base now, so we're waiting a little bit. So perhaps I should have done it other way. Okay, so now you see only data coming from Europe anymore. And with that, I'm finished with the presentation and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Jan. I do think that we should talk more often. I didn't know that you can run calculation views on top of JSON collections and files on the data lake. And it was actually the first time that I've seen text embeddings being used for a query on calculation views. Very good from my perspective. Great. Questions? I'll start with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask two questions if I may, but the first one is very fast. If it's possible to read other kinds of files in the data lake, like Parquet files, other than CSV, that's the first one.
I mean, everything that you can access via virtual table will work. So I mean, the calculation view is building on a virtual table. So if the virtual table supports it, then you can use it in calculation views as well. Sure. So there's nothing special about having a calculation view on top. The calculation view consumes a virtual table, and the virtual table goes to the data lake.
Okay. So. And the second one, promised to be fast. I've seen many scenarios where it's very hard to refactor a calculation view that is based on another one, then another one, especially when you need to somehow replace one column by the other one. Mm-hmm. Because usually what I had to do in the past is to kind of remove the first column ever since the top level to the kind of ground level, and then activate everything and then add the new column again, and kind of to replicate or propagate this column among not only one file, but among other many different files. So I would like to know if there's anything new in this tooling that helps this process of refactoring.
Yep. I mean, perhaps we talk about that a little bit longer later, because that's a larger thing, but there are a lot of changes. Okay. I mean, we have made a lot of changes. On one hand, for example, we have things like you can extract now nodes into separate calculation views. So that's the other way that you want it. Then we have options to propagate renamings to the top. We have options to copy elements. So you can copy like a calculated column somewhere else. And I think if Ryan, we can have a call on that even and just look what is still missing for your use case, what you need for refactoring, because that's something where we really want to improve further. But I think we are already pretty improved since the last, let's say, half a year or so. So just send me an email if you have a special thing, and let's have a look at how we can improve there first.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. You're done? You're fine? Okay.
Yeah, I would like to know if you need to run the embedding models for the placeholder text that you are searching for, or if you did not need it to pass it to embedding models as you're using calculation views.
No, I mean, somehow you have to encode it. I mean, the principle is you build a similarity space. In the similarity space, you have your descriptions of the hotels or the locations, and then you have to somehow embed your question also in this similarity space. So somehow, somewhere you have to do it.
But there's an in-database embedding model, which you can use intrinsically, so you don't need to call out to OpenAI and use text embedding RO2 or something. Yeah. More questions?
Yeah, here. One question. Is the calculation view tooling coming soon to VS Code natively?
We heard this question often today, and we are working on it. And yes, the question is now, what is soon? I cannot make a promise now, but let's say it like that. It's not much missing anymore. So we are working actively on it, and we hope that we will soon deliver it also.
More questions?
So actually, I have two questions. In SAP Web IDE, there was a node type graph function to traverse along graphs and graph workspace. Mm-hmm. And in Business Application Studio, this is not available anymore. Mm-hmm. Somehow, is there a reason for it? And is it planned to make it available again? And my second question is more general. Is it planned to develop some kind of AI assistance, maybe by Joule, for calculation view development, like mm-hmm. generating documentation using AI, or maybe automate some standard task like putting a projection node with a table inside CalcView? So some AI assistance for calculation view modeling.
Yeah. I mean, the graph that was, when we moved to HANA Cloud, we looked at what is the most important things that we want to keep and where do we want to really invest in further development for calculation views. And the graphs one was something where we thought it's perhaps not so beneficial to have it in calculation views, that it's really worth the investment in that area. So there are no plans for supporting that in a calculation view. But I mean, graphs workspaces, they have a lot of other environments where you can pretty well. Exactly. So the investment that we would do would not really pay out because it's just easily available anyway. And sorry, what?
AI was the next
AI,
question.
yeah, of course. I mean, we are looking into several directions. Also, as you said, about the documentation is also one part where we look at, and you can already today use kind of AI, Joule, and if you go into build code. So I mean, Business Application Studio is part, so to say, of build. And if you go into this area, then you get also the AI support already. So you can also ask questions about calculation views, documentation.
Okay, then, Jan, may I ask you to stick around just the corner for additional questions? Then again, additional round of applause for Jan. Thanks.